Honda's smallest cruiser enters 2026 with one headline change. E-clutch is now standard, and it is the only way to buy a Rebel 300. At $5,349, the 286cc single raises the question of whether removing the clutch lever removes the last barrier to riding. 5 pros, 5 cons. Clutch control is where most new riders quit. Feathering a friction zone while balancing a 379-pound machine, managing throttle, and looking through a corner is a lot of simultaneous input, and the penalty for error is a stall in front of traffic. Honda's e-clutch deletes that penalty. The system actuates the clutch electronically, so the rider simply toes the shift lever and the bike handles engagement, launching, and downshifts on its own. Crucially, it is not an automatic transmission, and it is not a dumbed-down experience. The 6-speed gearbox is still there, and the rider still chooses every gear. Honda debuted the technology on the CB650R and CBR650R, but the Rebel 300 is where it matters most. This is the model most likely to be someone's first motorcycle, and e-clutch removes the one skill that scares people off before they ever ride. The smartest part of Honda's implementation is that it is optional. Pull the clutch lever, and the e-clutch simply steps aside for roughly 5 seconds, handing full manual control back to the rider, before quietly resuming. That reversibility answers the obvious objection to rider aids of this kind, that a beginner who learns on one never develops conventional clutch technique. A new rider can commute clutch-free through stop-and-go traffic on Monday and practice friction zone drills in an empty parking lot on Saturday on the same machine with no menu diving. Experienced riders get something from it too, because the system doubles as a quick shifter for clutchless upshifts. Few entry-level bikes let owners choose their own difficulty setting this cleanly. At 27.2 inches, the Rebel 300 seat is among the lowest in motorcycling, and that number is not marketing spin achieved through a scooped-out saddle that punishes your spine. It is a consequence of low-slung cruiser architecture that pairs the short seat height with a narrow midsection, so riders get their legs down rather than straddling a wide tank. For shorter riders, riders with shorter inseams, and anyone whose confidence collapses at a stoplight they cannot flatfoot, that combination is transformative. The 379-pound curb weight helps as much as the seat height does. It is light enough to walk backward out of a parking space and to lift if it topples at walking pace. Wide 16-inch tires front and rear add planted, stable, low-speed manners. Beneath the tank cover sits a 286cc liquid-cooled DOHC single that Honda also deploys in the CB300R naked bike and CBR300R sport bike, and it behaves accordingly. Most cruiser engines in this class are air-cooled units tuned for low RPM thump and nothing beyond it. The Rebel single is happy to rev, producing a claimed 27 horsepower and roughly 19 to 20 pound-feet of torque while pulling cleanly through the range instead of falling flat halfway to redline. Liquid cooling and a counterbalancer separate it from budget rivals like the air-cooled Royal Enfield Meteor 350, keeping vibration and heat soak in check during the low-speed city work this bike will spend most of its life doing. Throttle response is deliberately soft and progressive, which is exactly right for a novice but never feels lazy. Entry-level pricing usually means visible cost cutting, and the Rebel 300 largely dodges it where safety and ownership are concerned. ABS is standard on both ends, working with a 296mm front disc and 240mm rear disc, and full LED lighting front and rear is fitted rather than reserved for a pricier trim. The 3.0-gallon tank paired with a frugal single delivers a claimed 175 to 200 miles of range, meaning a week of commuting between fill-ups for most riders. Add Honda's dealer network, a reputation for engines that shrug off neglect, and a catalog of 23 factory accessories, and total ownership cost stays low. The Motorcycle Safety Foundation's use of the Rebel as a training bike is its own endorsement of durability. The Rebel 300 will reach highway speeds and hold them, but it does so working hard rather than cruising. 27 horsepower, hauling 379 pounds plus a rider leaves little in reserve for uphill grades, headwinds, or the sudden merge that requires immediate acceleration in top gear. Riders who spend most of their miles on interstates will feel undergunned within months, and the bike's slim, unfaired profile means wind pressure becomes the limiting factor well before the engine does. This is a scope statement rather than a flaw. The Rebel is built for city streets and back roads, and it excels there. But many owners outgrow a 300cc cruiser within a season or two, which makes resale value part of the purchase decision. For 2026, the American lineup offers the Rebel 300 in exactly one configuration, and it includes e-clutch whether the buyer wants it or not. The result is a $5,349 MSRP before the $600 destination charge, positioning what has always been the lineup's budget entry point noticeably closer to the Rebel 500 than it once sat. Riders who already know how to operate a clutch or who specifically want to learn on a conventional setup are paying for hardware they may never use. There is also an unavoidable question of long-term serviceability. An electronically actuated clutch adds an actuator, sensors, and control logic to a machine whose historic appeal rested on mechanical simplicity and cheap repairs. Honda's reliability record is strong, but out-of-warranty complexity is complexity nonetheless. The Rebel 300 gets a small round LCD showing speed, gear position, and a fuel gauge, with trip meter functions available. What it does not show is engine RPM, and on a bike aimed squarely at people learning the fundamentals, that omission is genuinely counterproductive. New riders have not yet developed the ear or the feel for when to shift, and a tachometer is the single most useful teaching instrument on a motorcycle dashboard. The absence is more conspicuous for 2026 because e-clutch encourages shifting by foot without the tactile feedback of the lever. Rivals increasingly offer TFT displays with smartphone connectivity and navigation. The Rebel's dash looks a decade behind. The chassis hardware is adequate rather than accomplished. A non-adjustable 41mm telescopic fork provides 5.5 inches of travel, while dual rear shocks offer just 3.7 inches, with spring preload as the only adjustment available. On smooth pavement, the setup is compliant and unremarkable, but broken city surfaces and sharp expansion joints transmit more to the rider than they should, and the rear end runs out of travel quickly with a passenger aboard. Ground clearance of 5.9 inches is similarly cruiser typical, meaning the pegs touch down earlier than sportier riders will like on a spirited back road. Reviewers have also noted that the front brake lever feels soft and short on initial bite, requiring a firm pull for hard stops, even though outright stopping power is sufficient. The same low seat that makes the Rebel welcoming to shorter riders makes it a squeeze for taller ones. With mid-mount pegs and a short seat-to-peg distance, riders around 6 feet and above report a tight knee angle over longer stints, and the compact 58.7-inch wheelbase leaves little room to reposition. Passenger accommodation, meanwhile, is an accessory purchase rather than standard equipment. Then there is the paint. For 2026, the Rebel 300 comes only in matte black metallic or pearl smoky gray. A joyless pair for a machine Honda markets as a blank canvas for personalization. Competitors in this price bracket routinely offer brighter options, and buyers who want color will be shopping the accessory catalog.